Hello and welcome to the very first episode of the Dish It Dirty podcast. This is a brand new podcast focused on the cleaning, hygiene, catering, food packaging, and wider facilities and hospitality supply sectors. The aim of this show is simple: to bring together the people, businesses, ideas, and conversations that shape this industry. We'll cover market news, major trends, recruitment, growth, challenges, economic pressures, legislation, innovation, and speak to the people behind the businesses that keep this sector moving. The industry is huge. It impacts every business, every hospital, every school, every restaurant, every workplace, every day. Yet many of the people driving it rarely get the spotlight they deserve. So this podcast is here to change that. And for the very first episode, I wanted to start with someone who's seen the market from the top for decades. My first guest is my dad, Mike Revell. He has held managing director positions at Huhtamaki, Bunzl, Dooney, King, etc. And he's also the founding member and managing director of the Socius Network, the UK's largest catering and hygiene buying group. Across his career, he has led multi-site businesses, managed hundreds of staff, overseen hundreds of millions of pounds in turnover, delivered turnaround, acquisition, strategic growth, and built partnerships across the sector. So for episode 1, who better to speak to? And today we'll be discussing the Iraq conflict and what it could mean for supply chains, energy prices in the wider market, how EPR is affecting the sector, how the wider UK economy is affecting hospitality, food service, etc., and leadership lessons from decades of running major businesses throughout good times and bad. So whether you're a distributor, manufacturer, supplier, operator, buyer, or just curious about where the market is heading, you're in the right place. This is the Dish It Dirty podcast. Let's get into it with my dad, Mike Revell. Dad.
Well, was that actually about me? Was it? It didn't sound like a different person completely. God, makes me feel very old, David. There we are.
Yeah, well, Dad, who better to speak to? You are, you're the godfather in this industry. You know it all, and you've been there for such a long time. How long have you been in the industry for now? Is it 30?
Since 1987.
Damn.
That's nearly 39 years.
3 years.
I'm actually quite surprised, David. You could afford my fee for this podcast.
I sell a lot of my guitars and a lot of my clothes in order to get you here, so I appreciate it.
And if you want to get a loan, the answer's no. There we are.
As always. As always. No, thanks for coming on.
This should be a very interesting discussion. This is quite unique, isn't it? And for my son to put me under pressure, that's going to be a joy from him for sure. So
it's nice to have it the other way around for once, to be honest.
It does. Yeah, years and years of punishment is on. It's coming its way. But there we are. I'm sure it's going to be a very productive, informative discussion. And for the listeners who, all going through the same process as we are as businesses today, hopefully it's informative. So that's the major objective.
Well, obviously having you on as my dad is amazing in and of itself, but for many listeners actually listening, you've been in it for so long, you see it at top level, you've seen the pressures and the challenges, been through so many tough times. And I don't think there's many people better than you who will be, who's got the experience and the know-how to, tell people where the market's heading, what people can prepare for, some of the challenges that are out there, and just your overall take on some of the things that are happening in the market. I guess one of the things that I wanted to touch upon straight off the bat is when you look back at those 38 years in the industry, what stands out to you as the major changes that the market's been through in that time?
I think technology has got to be the case. There was nothing like there wasn't even a mobile phone when I started. I remember in 1992 I got my first car phone. There was no laptops. You used to phone in your orders in through a telephone box, and there was no websites. And you can imagine that change from 1987 till now. And also by talking to people around your age, David, in the last 10 years, the technology has just gone unbelievable. And you can imagine, put another kind of 25 years on before that, it's a different world completely, totally different world. And the pressures on businesses now, because of that technology, there's a lot of good things in that, but there's also communication works so fast now. I think technology for me is the first one that stands out. There's a number of others, but that's the one really does show that how much things have moved on in business.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's even changed so much in just 5 years. AI and everything else now is a different level. Um, but what do you think are some of the ways that, as you said, there's good things and then there's been bad things from that technology. What do you think some of those good things and bad things are that have affected the market over the years?
Well, if we look, we're talking about technology still. I think for marketing your own company, gathering data, just managing your P&L in general, it's so much more easier than it was by having 5 people in an accounts trying to work it all out. That to me is where things are on your fingertips virtually by the day.
Mhm.
I remember we used to do year end. Oh, sorry, do month end. It used to take us 2 weeks to do month end. But now you do month end and it's virtually done. If you've got a very good efficient business, that is, you should do your month end within at least the next day, as soon as the month is finished, and you have a pretty good idea where you are. In fact, you know where you are as the month goes on. If
Mm,
I go look back, you didn't know what the month was going to be like until you'd finished the month ends. And so there's a lot more transparency. I think you make better judgments by having that knowledge. You see the opportunities quicker and you see the real big issues also quicker because then you can action accordingly. So, yeah, I think everything's more open now regarding information. And that means as a manager of any business, you have a good chance of making the best decisions for your company after that, once you've got that data.
mhm,
You don't have to wait for it. But what we don't like, of course, is uncertainty that challenges that.
mhm.
And we've had a number of, certainly since the early 90s, we've had a number of different episodes that's challenged all that kind of you're no longer in control. And we're actually entering a phase now again, 5 years or so after COVID, maybe 6 years after COVID, we've now got another similar situation. And again, the data and the information and the technology helps you to navigate that than you would have been without that sort of information at your fingertips.
So straight on to that, which I think could be the thing that I personally want to talk to you about the most. It's fascinating is you talk about where we're at right now, the Iran war. There's no better person, I think, than you to sort of see it from a top level, to see how it's affecting everything and how it's going to affect the market moving forwards. Give us your take on what's happened so far, what you think is going to happen moving forwards, and how you think companies can navigate that.
Well, I wish I had a crystal ball, David. My personal take on this is all about oil. This is what it's about, really. The more I look into it, it's about control of oil. But I do remember 1979 when, when the Shah got dethroned, and then you had, a different regime, and then suddenly you knew one day something might happen. I think it was always a concern at some stage, and now we're here. My worry is how long, even if the war finished today, or conflict, whatever you want to call it, it would take around 6 months, maybe 9 months, for the world economy to unravel all the big issues that's going to develop, which we'll cover in a minute, um, to be back to some sort of normality. I mean, when in COVID, it took a good nearly a year to get back to some normality, get the prices reset within the supply chain to wherever it was pre-COVID. Now, I'll give you an example now. Because you've got all these tankers stuck in the Gulf, all the tankers are in the wrong place. Um, Now, most of the shipping companies know where this ship is going to be for the next year. And I really feel sorry for those guys on those ships right now, on the tankers, because they're just stuck there. Um, they're probably running out of food. I'm sure they'll get food, etc. But what a horrible situation to be in, just sitting there. I think they've been there 60 days now, and it's counting. And all they want to do is probably want to get home. I have a lot of sympathy for all the people on those ships. But what it will happen is you've now got a rippling effect. It's like throwing a stone in a pond. It ripples across, and now you've got all the tankers in the wrong place. And that's what happened with COVID. And it took the shipping companies a good 9 to 12 months to get the tankers all in the right place again. So that's a big issue. So then you've got big we talk about the impact of that is that there's only a certain amount of capacity on the tankers that are free, but there's a cost then. The cost goes up immediately. And so that's going to have a massive impact on the world economy. The other one is, of course, is countries that rely heavily on oil from Iran or from the Gulf when it's just stuck there. And one of those is actually, of course, is China. And China is the engine of the world in manufacturing to a degree. And at the moment, any oil-based products will be a shortage. It's not about who's got the highest bidder. It will be a situation where you've got no product. I'll give you an example of that. China is one of the biggest, probably if not the biggest, vinyl glove manufacturer. Malaysia is the largest nitrile glove manufacturer, which is mostly you use in medical hospitals. They've got no raw material. We're hearing about some factories closing down because energy costs are so high, and you've got no raw material. So if you're running a factory that's about 20 or 30% capacity, it's not about, by the way, I can buy the highest price. You've got no product. And the impact of this is just going to get worse and worse and worse. So there's going to be a shortage of product in the supply chain. It could be that we'll have no gloves in the Western Europe. If it continues much longer, there won't be many gloves left in 3 or 4 months because, unfortunately, they're only made in China and Malaysia, where other products are made around the world. This category is not. And Europe hasn't learned its lesson because we had this in COVID. And America said, we're not going to have, it's never going to happen to us again. And I think there's 2 state glove factories now, so they don't have to rely on other, I think it's definitely true, but that's what I'd heard. There's 2 glove factories. They don't have to rely on China or Malaysia for their gloves, because you do need gloves for medical reasons alone. Just that alone, let alone food preparation in hospitality. That's probably lower down the ladder. It shouldn't be, but that's where it is. But hospitals and care homes and everything else would take priority. So where are we going to be in 3 or 4 months' time with no product coming out to Malaysia and China? There's 2 things. There's no raw material. There's no factories making it. And then are they going to get a tanker that's going to ship it? Because all the tankers are in the wrong place. You can see, honestly, David, you can see this snowballing effect. And this is just one category. The other thing is, what I'm hearing is, when the oil does get there eventually, I'm sure material for those type of products are way down the supply chain when it comes to refining. It's going to be things like, jet fuel and, petrol for cars and things like that. They're going to be the top of the list. There's going to be a lot of products that's going to be way down the list and also it's going to be drip fed, because the other issue we're hearing, the ports are ready, but you can't actually offload all the material or the goods all at the same time. They're going to be queuing up at the ports for, could be a month, could be 2 months. So the impact of this hasn't really hit the economies of the world quite yet, but we're on the verge of it actually hitting, and that's without having the discussion about potential inflation. Western Europe already has an issue on inflation building up. This country will be hit. I think there could be potentially another 2% on inflation could be hit the marketplace yet, and that's just caused by the Gulf War. So that rippling effect I was talking about, by putting the stone in the pond, it hits you somewhere along the line, and you think, oh, it's not going to hit us yet. Well, I think we're going to be all right. Well, no, it is going to happen. And even if it finished today, it will still have a major effect for the economy. It's because a lot of catching up to do.
Yeah. I mean, I've got so many questions just off of that alone. I mean, the rippling effect is unbelievable. How does our markets then deal with this? Cleaning, hygiene, food packaging, catering supplies, all these ones. Like, what can they do moving forwards to try and alleviate some of that pressure? What can they do to try and still find success in the market? What do you see on that side of things?
Well, I think it's a very difficult situation to navigate, because I'll touch one other thing, David, before I answer that. If it's just a UK or European manufacturer, do you think they're going to be not involved in this inflation and cost rising? No. All of us today are paying more for our diesel and our petrol at the pumps. In about 3 or 4 months' time, the government of the UK has got a big decision about the cap on energy. That's going to be, it probably won't affect us this summer, but by the time we get to the autumn, could have a massive impact on households. So there's going to be an inflation part, even if you manufacture a product in the UK, because of delivering anything now is more. The energy of manufacturing something is going to be more. So you can imagine, just put this all on top. You can see that even if you're not bringing any products in from the other side of the world, it's going to hit you in a different way here. So what about businesses? I think it's to me, it's always been a view. This is really tests you how you can be a good manager of a business, because you learn a lot of lessons from the past. And I think that and you try and learn from them. I remember on the Kuwait, and when Iraq invaded Kuwait in 1991. I'm sure that the petrol price come up from about $55 up to nearly 200, because it's the first time it ever really happened. Oh, I mean, it was a shock, and this is very, very similar. So I think it's very difficult for businesses, because through the supply chain, you then have to then inform your customer that you've got no choice but to put prices up. And the word force majeure comes up. I call it mini force majeure. It's not a force majeure where your supplier will go bust, but if they don't put an increase in, it will lead towards them being bust. So you've really got no choice but to take the increase, even if you went to another supplier. Yeah, they may be 1p cheaper, but it's still got the same issue. It has to be passed on. Of course, when you get down to the end user, they think, well, what's going on here then? Why are we getting all these increases? Well, listen to the news every day, because all this activity is impacting on you now, but it's normally a delayed effect. It could take up to 2 or 3 months. So the skill is to make sure that you manage your costs properly, make sure you've got enough stock of the right stock. So it puts a very good emphasis on working capital. Bad working capital is you've got the wrong stock, too much of the wrong stock. Make sure you've got the right stock for the products that you need. And for the first time, I think most of the people I'm hearing, they're not chasing new business. They're just thinking about consolidating with the customers they've got now, making sure they don't let them down, which is a very hard thing to do, but not chasing for new business. But the common sense is, just think about it twice. If anyone else comes on that doesn't normally buy from you, think about it twice about supplying them. Because you're going to let your normal customers down. Now, David, that's not a standard behavior that we have. You want to go for growth. You want to supply everybody you can. So a lot of business discipline needs to be put into place. I do think managing costs, you got to pass it on. And really you have no choice. But if everybody goes, because they're all in the same position, everyone's in the same position, but in the end, it will cause inflation. In the end, it puts real costs onto the market. Now, each market is different. Hospitality, which we'll cover later, is very fragile as it is, let alone this coming along. I would say hospitality could have done without this. It's already struggling. I'm hoping we're going to have a good summer. I hope that England do well in the World Cup and get to the final, which means all the pubs and bars will be very busy for about 6 weeks. That could be a lifesaver, but it doesn't solve the problem. And by the time we get to the autumn, we've still got the same issues that are in front of us. And we're just talking about at the moment about the conflict. We're not talking about other issues that's causing hospitality, which we will cover in the rest of this chat here. But right now, it's a very difficult place, and you're hearing about restaurants closing and a lot of pubs closing. It's a tough. We go on like this. I think there's rumours that 25% of our pubs could be closed within the next 3 or 4 years. And that's a real shame, because they are part of the community and everything else that goes with it, and also generates jobs, especially for people that are just starting to do some work. We've all started working in restaurants and pubs just to get your first job, and if those opportunities are also are being restricted, that's bad news for employment as well. So, and this is just about the Gulf conflict. We haven't even discussed the other areas yet, David. We will get to that in a minute. So we're right in the middle of it at the moment as a business. Suppliers are putting increases in, and is there an alternative to go to another supplier? No, because they don't particularly want to sell any business to any products to a new customer either. We will reserve this product for you. But is the supply chain going to be strong enough? I would say in about a month, 6 weeks' time, we're going to have a problem in the supply chain for
Mm.
sure.
Well, what happens, think about those rippling effects, like you say, if it's just gloves as an example, which is, like you say, way down on the priority list, just that problem alone, the ripple effect of healthcare
Ugh.
and dentists and, well, what does happen in those times?
Well, there's not a quick solution. I think on food preparation, there's other alternatives you can use. It's not so strict. You still got to make sure you have a different type of product you can use. But you could have a stage where you have to wear mittens or, yeah, you can imagine. I mean, nitrile is a specific product for medical care, and it's only really made in Malaysia,
Mm.
and the factories are not running. So,
Even even like mechanics and people who work in factories, they're dealing with chemicals and
it's,
things like that.
yeah,
It's
and this is
yeah.
what happens, David, when you only have over years that you have the cheapest goes all the way towards China or Malaysia, which is fine, you know. But there's no other alternatives. There's hardly any glove manufacturing in Europe at all now. And if it is, it's top end of the market for specific requirements. Well, but that, we learned a lot from COVID and nothing got done about it.
Mm, mm,
COVID was the same situation. You had market forces pricing, people, inflating prices, people who are not even in the game, getting involved in the supply chain of PPE, etc. This is a different issue. Different issue is there's no product. Well, there won't be soon anyway.
mm.
If you're running at 20% and you are the heartland of a product sector, down the line it's going to have a massive effect.
And if you're an optimistic person, if you're the type of person who is maybe entrepreneurial and looking for opportunities, where would the opportunities be in this scenario in our markets? Like what is there any that could be real opportunities for people to capitalize on in this situation? Or
Well, I think in COVID proved that opportunists did have a go at it who were never in the market. It's a different game here. It's a different time because it's not about with loads of product at an inflated price. It's no product at all for supply.
mm,
So it's a totally different. Yeah. So I'm just talking about gloves as a perfect example. But what will happen, David, if you've got any product that's oil-based products
mm,
that come from Asia, will have a massive effect. Whether it's paper cup coating, it's polyethylene. Well, there's not enough polyethylene around. The same issue will happen with there over time. Luckily, mostly of Western Europe, gets most of its oil from Norway. So it's and most of its gas also from Turkey, also or from Scandinavia. But the market force price still goes up. The barrel, you see it every day. One of the first headlines on the news today is always price per barrel. So it has a massive impact along the way.
mm,
So what's the opportunist? It's sometimes about business. It's about timing. So in many cases, anybody doesn't see the opportunity now, it's best to maybe wait until things settle down. I'm not making that a negative comment to say that, but sometimes many people who may be listening to this podcast now will say that most of their big successes they've ever had in their businesses or in their careers it's been the right time, either themselves personally or the right time for the business. So we don't have a crystal ball on this issue. We're hoping that the war will finish soon, but sometimes you don't implement something until maybe the playing field is right. I've always seen a business as a bit like a chessboard. Make sure all your pieces is all in the right place, and make sure you work towards your checkmate. And that means everything's got to be right for you to hit the objective you're setting out. If it means you put the brakes on because you think it's the right thing to do, I learned my lesson many years ago. Don't be afraid to put your brakes on and wait for the right time. But you need to then move very quickly and fast when you think it's the right time. But
mm,
opportunity when you've got this type of rippling effect, it's very difficult for someone to start a business right now. I can imagine if you're starting a business right now, it's a very difficult situation. Doesn't matter where you are. Very difficult situation for anyone, an entrepreneur that wants to start a business. So it's a difficult one. All we have to try and do is, our job is to try and delay increases as much as we can, but it's not, that's not easy.
Mhm.
And there's no guarantee you're going to get all the products you want as well. So that
Mhm.
then, imagine in the care homes and hospitals and, the facilities management places and hospitality, pubs and restaurants, when no one can fulfill the product that you want. That's going to be really interesting, isn't it?
Mm. Mm.
If it goes on much longer for another 4 or 5 months, there's going to be a massive impact on supply and on price, everything. So, yeah, let's keep our fingers crossed that common sense prevails and there's a deal that's going to be done where the global economy can then get back to some sort of normality.
When it comes
When it
to
comes to
the
the
price
price
increases,
increases,
what
what
is there a
is
particular
there?
way that you found to navigate that better than others? I'm sure you've had plenty of experience with it at this stage. What's the best way to handle that with customers?
Well, if we're talking about our business, our members do about 8,000, 10,000 products. They may get an increase on this one, an increase on that one. Do they send 50 different increases out at different times? I mean, you don't want to do that. So you try and digest it all, and then, and I'm sure the members then look at the right time to go for a market increase. Everybody will have to go, because if you don't go, you'll go bust. So the mentality is you have to go for a price increase. All we can do as businesses is just try and delay them as long as we can, the impact, the level of them, and also coupled with that to make sure we can, within our supply base, guarantee some supply commitment. Now, I do like hearing from a supplier that says, we're not hunting any more new business, but any stock we have is going to be reserved for our current customers. I like that. That's common sense business. You know, if they run out of stock in about a week, then we know they've offered it to everybody, the first person on the block, which is ruins a relationship forever, really. So it's going to be a very, very difficult time to navigate. And getting a market increase in the end, I think certainly to the end user, they will have no choice but to take it. Imagine what the cost pressures that hotels and restaurants and bars and pubs have today, and suddenly we're coming along because of the Gulf conflict. We've now got this. We haven't mentioned even EPR or, the extra business taxes they're actually paying for today, or the minimum wage, which has caused a lot of issues also in that sector. This is coming on top of that. So so anyone who goes and sees that cup of coffee going up from £2.50 to £3.50 in the next kind of 6 to 9 months will know why. You go to your restaurants, you go out to eat, so the costs are going up.
Mm.
That's inflation, and you're going to see more of that unless there's a solution. But I will go back to my point, David. Even if the conflict finished today, nothing will go back to normal for quite a long time, even though I think we all agree that the stock markets will like what they see, and also the oil price will come down. But the whole supply chain will take a while for that to really kind of kick into the economy.
And like you say, if it does, let's just say it does get resolved quickly, which we're all hoping for. You've mentioned some of the other challenges there, quite a few big ones. What do you think are the next biggest ones after that? And again, what's your take on how those ones are gonna affect the market as well?
Well, I think I touched the ones really at first about which I think every business suffers is business rates is a big issue. They've increased so much, sometimes tenfold. I mean, how can people budget their business when their business rates have just gone through the roof? Um, Minimum wage, I think, has an impact on hospitality. Um, that's a difficult that one because you always want people to be paid well. I think that's I think, but I think in hospitality, everybody knows that's your first job, and you nice to have some money in your pocket. But I think that's a problem. It's a difficult one, that one, because you do want people to be paid well. So,
How
but
do
it's a
you navigate
cost.
that then? Because there must be a balance in there somewhere with the
But
minimum wage.
when
Like
already, I
where
think in the data you're seeing, David, at the moment, A lot of people that normally would get a hospitality job to just it's students working in a restaurant, or the jobs aren't there.
They're not there anyway. Yeah.
Not there anyway, because one is costing it too much. And maybe the restaurant or the pub says, okay, what we're going to do, we're going to open 4 days a week instead of 7. So, yeah. And also, they say, we're only going to staff this. That means half the restaurant is what we're going to use. I mean,
Mm.
you see it when you're out. You might think, there's some empty seats there. Maybe because they haven't actually want any more people to come,
Mm.
because they know they've got a budget of how much turnover they want. I mean,
Mm.
that's not growth mode, is it? That's kind of, we're just going to stagnate as such.
Mm.
The other big one really is, which I know a lot about, is EPR, extended producer responsibility, and I've been involved in that since 2016, 2017. I had my first meeting with the Treasury at Westminster, and this has had a massive impact on most businesses that have to do with moving boxes around, packaging. That includes the retailers, that includes all your fast food chains, every distributor that's involved in it. Um, Beer bottlers is a market in itself. Paint tins, anything you can think about. The government has set up a most complicated legislation that I've ever seen, and secondly, have a legislation that cannot be policed or enforced. So how can it be legislation? So what I mean by that is, if you're compliant, they're asking for more money because they can't track the people that are non-compliant. So the behaviour then says, I don't want to be compliant.
Mm.
So you're punishing the people that are compliant. It's a big story, this, David, but it has a massive impact, because in the end, it also goes down the supply chain. It's that rippling effect again, all the way down. And there's a lot of discussions going on with DEFRA, with PAC UK, and of trying to find solutions to make this so much easier. But it's the pressure it's caused on businesses is immense, and it's a poor legislation. Nobody from the packaging industry, which is obviously from my industry, not one was consulted. Not one person was involved in the discussions for legislation. They just went ahead with it. We were asked. I said, well, don't you just put 1% on VAT? That will solve it, because the biggest police force we've got in this country is the HMRC. They'll soon chase your money for you. And if you actually publicised it to the public to say, we're going to put 1% on VAT, and it's going to go to increase recycling and recycling capacity, a lot of the Joe public would probably say that makes sense. At least we know where the money's going. You know what the answer was? We don't know how we can divvy the money out. I said, it's very easy. £1,000 divided by 21. There's your number. Because you pay 20% on VAT. Just put extra 1%, you divvy the money out by 21. And I'm thinking, sure, they wanted another tax. They wanted another way to capture more money. You would have captured more money by going with a 1% VAT. You would have done. But now you've got loads of importers bringing product in. They're not EPR registered, and they're taking business away from people that are EPR registered. Surely that is not right.
Mm.
And if we go to the Environmental Agency, bless them, they're overloaded. They have put some extra resources in, but that's for fly tipping. Fly tipping is much more big news today than the enforcement of EPR. So my role, just to say, I'm the chairman of the Food Service Packaging Association. We are engaging with DEFRA and PAC UK, which is the middle person in managing the money, trying to find how we can improve the legislation. But my big worry is, if this legislation is not reviewed, when businesses do their budgets in Q3 this year for 2027, would there be potential job losses in the packaging industry? And that's what we've said. Be careful what you wish for. Now, if you just want to import product from China and from India, that's fine. But then you have the same issue when a crisis comes up, you can't get it. So we've got to protect the employers in this country. But you can't have a legislation that says, thank you very much, Mr. Company A, you've given us £5 million for EPR. Thank you. Then they say, we haven't got enough money. We're not getting the money we forecast. And the people over here that paid nothing don't get punished. There's no fear factor.
Mhm.
And something has to change. Fear factor into businesses that are not taking their responsibility like everyone else is. And that's the issue we've got, David, at the moment. Now, going back to your point about the supply chain, anyone who is doing EPR is where they can, if possible, we're passing that on to all the way down the supply chain, whether it's a distributor or an end user. And that has an impact on inflation as well.
So how is it then that you've got? How are they not tackling those that are coming from China or wherever in the same way? Why is that? Why is that not being tackled?
What a marvellous question that is, David. It's a question that we've asked so many times. How are you going to police? Any legislation should have a enforcement and policing mechanism. And at this moment of time, this hasn't got it. In many regards, we're policing it ourselves. I have a person that's emails me. His name is EPR Whistleblower. I don't know who it is. They give me all these company names that haven't been registered for the plastics tax, which is PRN, and also EPR. Now, I can send that on to the Environmental Agency. That is my duty as running the business of Socius Network, and also for the chairman of the FPA. But I am not going to be in a situation where nothing is done. I'll look even more stupid then. But then that goes back to the view, if you want us to police it ourselves, we'll have a tax rebate then. How about that? You know, but the industry should not be policing it themselves. It should be, if you're putting any legislation in place, you've also got to put a budget and resources to enforce it. And today, that is not the case. But we've got to continue to engage with the authorities. I do think there is a sense of understanding now that this has to be resolved. Because if you're not careful, the people that are paying the money for EPR, if they've got if their business is going down, what happens, David? The money they're collecting goes down. See, the hole becomes even bigger.
Mm. Mm.
And I think if you're not careful, your money will be down in 2027 and your money will be down in 2028. But if you go around and put a fear factor of anyone and punish people that are not paying EPR, you may well recoup some of that money that is the gap. They haven't hit their budgets. But the first thing they thought, we might have to put the money up. Well, that's great, isn't it? Punish the people that are
Even more.
being compliant. I mean, it's crazy. But I'll go back to my point. If you did it through HMRC and do it through a 1% VAT, it would have been so much simpler. Because MHMRC, it's no hiding from not paying your VAT. But they
Why did they
wanted to
not
go
do it
down
that
this
way?
road. I don't know. I think change of government didn't help. You know, we changed one. You know, it was mostly in play already, and then obviously another government came in. It was that it was already there. So I'm not blaming one certain government here. I'm not being political in any way. But I think the most of the work was already being done, and they just said that's easy. Just carry on.
Carry on.
But like with all legislation, there's got to be a fear factor that if you don't, anyone gets punished for not doing it. And today that's not the case. And I think the businesses who think they're doing it the right way, and that's the other thing about it, it's very, very complicated. I don't think they all know that they're doing it right. I think the heart's saying we're doing it right, but it's so complicated that they're in the end will just see their business going like that.
Mm.
And if you're importing from China or India today, the same product you're manufacturing here, it will not be picked up by any importing tax. It wouldn't be picked up by any EPR penalty. There's nothing. So it's going straight through the net. And if anybody can buy it cheaper, David, they'll buy it cheaper if they can avoid paying EPR. So we've now talked about the inflation of the Gulf. We've now talked about EPR, the impact of that. And I don't think that's going to be solved quickly. So if you're in the hospitality market, there are impacts already that are hitting hard in the cost base. Then you've got business rates. Then you've got minimum wage. Then you had the NIC in the budget in October last year. A massive impact to the employers. All it does. So how do companies recoup it? Is easy. they've got to try and find ways of passing it on in price increases, which causes inflation. I'm not
Mm,
talking one reason, we're talking at least five.
mm,
So it's tough.
mm. And then
It's
you've
a
got on
tough
top of
market.
that, as you know, I do jujitsu every week, and there's a lot of young guys who I train with who are 18 to 21. They see me as a bit of a granddad now, which is funny. Um, but when I speak to those guys about what they do with their time, they're not going out to bars and pubs. They don't go out.
No.
They don't. They can't afford to do it, and also they're a lot more. A lot of them are a lot more health focused. They want to look after themselves. They
Yeah.
train. They
Yeah.
take things seriously. So then you've got I guess, on the hospitality side of it, you've also got changing. Not sure what the word is, changing
Changing behaviour. I think
behaviors.
on an
Sorry,
age
yeah,
group.
changing habits and
Yeah,
behaviors. So,
yeah. I think that's definitely happening, and maybe that's another reason why the pub sector is also struggling. People don't go to the pubs every night. One is they haven't
no,
got the money, but two, that's not the culture now. If things have moved on, um, but I think, but one way or t'other, all the time people are not spending money, then it also affects the economy. Again,
mm,
you know, maybe they're spending it in different ways. So, yes. So I do believe, going back on a positive slant, David, when these things do come up, my view is, okay, we've learnt lessons from before. We're going to continue to be learning different situations. And what we do is we still try and push forward, manage your business correctly, you know, communication to your customers, and to your suppliers, uh, continuously looking at your working capital. Make sure you check your data on a regular basis to making sure you know what your margins are. I think that's really important. And don't be afraid you have to make the tough decisions, because everyone else has to make that tough decision as well, not just you.
I guess that's one of the. I'm not doing this is a positive, is it? But you can. It is everybody else, so no one can just point the finger at you and go, "Such and such glove manufacturer, how dare you?" type of
No,
scenario. It's
no,
the
no,
same boat, I guess, which is you know, it lessens the blow maybe a little bit, doesn't it? Because, like you say, wait, where are you going to go? You're going to go to another supplier with the same issues, and then it's never going to.
no.
I'm
The,
really
the, ba- the
sorry.
bad, the bad
Sorry.
ones, David, are when it's just your business and your business is not in good shape and it has nothing to do with these other factors.
Mm,
That's not a great place to be when it's a business issue, you know,
mm,
and that mainly because it's a bad business.
mm,
But also, if it's a bad business in this climate, it finds the cracks very quickly.
mm,
Anyone that works on very low margins, anyone who's actually doesn't have a proper infrastructure, doesn't have the right people, a product that is too expensive, or people can do without. All these things can have a massive impact on a business. Especially, and I will go back. Anyone who works on very low margins, they might seem to be aggressive. I don't know how they do it. In the end, I've seen it so many times. In the end, they go.
mm.
They go because it can only be sustainable for a period of time. It could be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, but in the end, it catches up with them one
Mm,
way or t'other. You
mm.
cannot go down the route of cheap and thinking that's going to be your own solution. And if your infrastructure is not great, you haven't got the right people, then this is when you start seeing businesses going down, because nobody would particularly wants to buy them, to acquire them.
So when you look, I mean, the story that you're telling
Mm.
here is, if you extrapolate that by 10 years, doesn't sound like a very rosy picture as we go down the line. But what do you foresee? What could be a huge change that may send these things the other way, where we suddenly go into a position of growth
Yes,
and
I, I,
prosperity?
I'm, I- I'm hoping that this first part wasn't so negative. It's reality. Okay,
Mm,
so as you know, most people that know me, I'm actually a very positive person, and I am.
mhm,
So let's look at the channels. If you look at hospitality, the one area of its incredible growth is home delivery,
mhm,
right? The home delivery drives packaging innovation.
mhm,
Yeah, that's what
mhm,
it's done. Every time we get a meal from Just Eat or whatever other company you want to do, you think, I've never seen this packaging before. This is all
mhm,
different. And because, they've got to make sure the food's still of good quality, and, it's safe and it's not been, contaminated in any way. I can see the home delivery just booming more. You imagine what this home delivery market is going to be like during the World Cup. I mean,
Mm,
it's going to be crazy. And if you don't
mm,
actually book well in advance, you're probably not going to get a meal.
mm,
It's going to be, if England have got a semi-final or quarter, well, even in our lot, I'm not can't just talk about England. We've probably got people from Scotland here as well.
mm,
Yeah, it's going to go mad. It's
mm,
going to go mad. So I see home delivery only growing.
mm,
I do think to take away market in, I think is still going to struggle. I think that era is hit its peak. Um, but home delivery is only just the start.
mm,
So that's great for businesses in packaging because you've got to innovate.
mm, mm,
And there was a packaging innovation show in February this year. I don't know how these businesses have actually still managed under this climate, still finding ways to innovate. And I applaud them. And for us, that's great for our market.
mm,
On the other side of the fence, you look into hospitality, I think certainly, and into the janitorial hygiene sector, David. COVID, we learnt a lot of lessons from, and we've still got the impact of that, how people are very much more hygienic, they wash their hands more. We've learnt more about, this type of thing. And of course, we have a generation that's getting older, so care homes are getting busier. Hospitals, will go through a reform at some stage, but until then, it's still going to be busy. So I think the hygiene sector is also go through innovation. We're seeing different type of chemical options coming up that are different from the past. They've been around a while, but they're starting to kind of penetrate the market share of the chemical market. So you can see that the hygiene janitorial sector, which is hospitals and care homes, I think they will continue to evolve. The markets I'm concerned about in hospitality is the pub sector, and I would say some elements of the restaurant sector is going to suffer. And you're hearing news about some chains in trouble already. I do not see that going away.
mm. It's funny because down the road from us, there is a kebab van that is always heaving in the mornings and in the evening. It's heaving. And as you know, I'm never a big kebab guy. I always got burgers, didn't I? From the kebab. But we've been getting them from this kebab van. And I was speaking with the guy who runs it there. And he says he's been doing it for like 20 years. But in the last couple of years, it skyrocketed through the roof for his little van on the corner.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking, that's an interesting, because what about, because how many of those is there around the country? It's impossible to tell, probably. But how they're probably not in such a bad state of affairs, right? I imagine that type of sort of low overhead, doing it from your van, could be something that
Well, if you make it, if you're producing a good quality product, you're in.
Mm,
If it's a decent price, you're in. You're definitely already in with convenience, you
mm,
know, and it gets word of mouth. If it's really good, it will do well. It's all about quality. Eating habits have changed and drinking habits have changed.
mm,
So, um, and I think COVID had a lot to do with that. I do believe we went, I don't know what, most people would think, I think, but what was going to happen over the next 15 years happened in 2 years instead. I
mm.
mean, how many meetings do we have on Teams and Zoom now, like we are here? Hardly heard of,
It was
you know,
trickling in. It was
slowly.
trickling into in the recruitment world just beforehand, but just trickling. So you're probably
Just
right.
trickling.
Yeah. It.
And loads of other behaviours suddenly went from first gear to fifth gear and changed dramatically.
Mm,
Yeah, and there's no reason for it to stop, David. You can see it just continuing to go.
mm,
I think the issue I think that we are going to face is good quality people. You know, you can see. I see two things. I see the next generation in my industry. Um, we had the FPA, the Food Service Packaging Association, sorry, the FPA. We have a Rising Star Award every year, and I was involved in the interview process. David, the quality of these guys was immense.
Mm,
And it
mm,
I'm heartened what I was seeing in the quality of these people. It was such a tough decision to choose somebody, but they're keyed up with the environmental issues they face. Their skills are very good. The appetite of doing well in our industry. I thought,
mm,
wow, this is great.
mm,
But as you probably find in your field, of getting the right quality people now is really tough. I mean, I was very lucky that day we had 7 people and they were marvelous. I would employ all of them. Actually, they were fantastic. But I know your job is the other way around. Is trying to get good people is this is what businesses are also lacking in and struggling with. And then you have to pay a lot of money for the right people, for the good people. And I can see that trend continuously.
One of the things on that front was, I think we've touched upon this before, but given that you're so heavily involved with the FPA and the CHSA, one of the things that we struggle with is young people coming into these markets, trying to get young to come into it in the first place. Um, because it's not a sexy industry that a young person thinks about straight off the bat. They probably never thought about it. Most people fall into it a lot of the
Yeah,
time. And it's also, when you compare it to a lot of the other markets, it's not as well paying either. It's just a fact. So
yeah.
it's not interesting and it doesn't pay as well. So I was having a chat with, when we were at Interclean, actually, I was having a chat with one of the leaders of one of the big companies in our market. And he was like, I'm really struggling to get young people into my team. I want to get young,
Mm.
innovative, hardworking people into the team, but we can't attract them. And I just asked him a simple question. I just said, when was the last time you hired a territory or area salesperson with no industry experience? He went, well, we wouldn't do that. We need the industry experience. Well, that's why you're not getting young people in. How many people out there are giving opportunities to young people without the industry experience?
Yeah.
Is enough. So we're losing. They always want industry experience. That gives you the same pool over and over again. And we're not getting enough people coming through the bottom of the bucket to rise up the ranks in there. That does
I,
concern me a little bit, and I'm not
yeah,
sure.
I don't think the industries that we're in here market well enough. I would say once the young people do take a punt, that I think is one of the best decisions they've ever made. Once they're in it, it's a very incestuous market. It's still face to face 9 times out of 10, so it really develops your interpersonal skills. I think it's something you can stay in the industry a long time if you're good at it, and it does become sexy. Then it does become sexy. It's a bit of a killer at a dinner party. What do you do? Sell toilet rolls. We'll move on to another subject. But 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 overall, it's a great industry to be in. And if you start at the beginning at the bottom, the opportunity for career progression, and if you're good at it, is fantastic. It's fantastic. I was fortunate enough to do it. I come in by accident a little bit, I suppose, but I had a catering background, as you know, David. So I always would move towards a catering slant. But I would say that once you're in this industry, very rarely do people want to leave it, and you can over time really
Mm.
build up your skills. But it's getting them in at the beginning. I agree with you. That's the tough one.
We
That's the tough one.
we when we're having this conversation with young guys and ladies, of course, there's really 3 things that young people want, you know, stability, progression, and development. That's the main things that we hear from them, what they want from companies. And there's a particular, wipe manufacturer in our industry does a really good job of this. They've got an unbelievably good training program for young
Yeah.
starters. So when we go to the
Yeah.
market and recruit for those guys, on all of our recruitment marketing, on the job adverts, when they speak to me and everything, the whole thing is based off, you're going to learn here. This is what you're going to learn. You're going to learn X,
Yeah.
Y, and Z. It's going to happen over a
Yeah.
course of a year. And at the end of that, you're going to have X and Y skills. And the amount of people that I speak to who come from tech, financial services, you know, fashion, sexy industries, I ask them, why have you applied for this? You're coming from tech. Why would you want to be in clean and hygiene? Because I'm looking for the development. I want the
Yeah.
development, and I'm not getting the development where I'm at the moment. So I think we've
Yeah.
got a really good opportunity if, and there's not many of them that do this, can put together very structured development plans for young people. We can't compete on interest and we can't compete on money, but we can
No.
compete on development. but companies need to have the appetite to want to do that in the first place. And then secondly, they've got to have the appetite to want to tell people about it and market it and show it,
Yeah.
which they, we do, but not a lot of companies do. The other thing when I speak to young people is stability. I mean, this markets have been around forever. They're going to be around forever. It's not like tech and it's like that. You're going to, you have your biggest year in tech next year, you're laid off and then it's up and down. It's not that volatile. And I always say to young people as well, it's a great opportunity for your progression. Like you say, one of the great opportunities for young people progression wise is because there's not many young people in it, you become one of the few who's got a good reputation who is young. When the time comes for people who want young sales leaders and X, Y, and Z, you get headhunted quite quickly, as opposed
Yeah.
to in tech, you're just one of millions and millions of saturated people.
One of many. And I do believe, if there's a strap line, this industry is much more sexy when you're in it. Once you're in it, it's a bit of, it's like a bug. It is like a bug. And there's not many industries now where you're having a face-to-face communication.
Mm,
You're networking a lot,
mm,
and you're learning so much. And I think we work in a marvelous industry. But I also would like to see more young people coming through with the same appetite. But I'm only picking the 7 people I met, David. They were all brilliant.
mm,
And I was shocked.
mm,
They knew more than me.
mm,
And that's
mm,
great, isn't it?
mm,
On some of the environmental issues, these guys were so on
mm,
point. And
mm,
that's great. We just need more of them,
mhm,
you know?
mm. Well, you got to give them a lot of time with the young people. Is you've got to give them a bit of time too.
Yeah,
You've
you
got
need
to
to
give them
train them,
time,
you need
train them.
patience. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You need a lot of patience. And they all make mistakes at the beginning. We all did, and as long as they learn from them, help them and guide them. We've had this conversation many times, David, and to me, and I was given some advice a long, long time ago. What do you want? What do you want to do in your career? Where do you want to go? And I just said, as long as I've got personal development that's there continuously, I'll be happy. I
Mm,
want to be pressed outside my comfort zone all the time to make myself feel uncomfortable all the time. And you hear it a lot, David, don't you? People say, I feel so uncomfortable. I'm happy about this job because they're broadening your comfort zone. And that's why
mm,
that's what's happening. Go through the pain barrier of being uncomfortable
mm,
because your comfort zone is becoming much broader.
mm,
My view has always been, don't worry if you're uncomfortable. That's only a good thing
mhm,
because your personal development, that's what you want. And if you think personal development is nice and easy without any challenges and dream on, you've
mm,
got to go through those, I would say that this comfort zone over time gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So when I used to interview people, what's the most important? Oh, I want your job in 5 years. That's just a standard answer. No, most important thing is I want to work for a company that will be focusing on my personal development and want to develop me.
mhm.
To me, is always a big sign.
I think you're absolutely spot on. That's the key of getting those good young people into it is
Yeah.
that piece of it. But it's being able to, you can't just say, we're going to give you development. You have to have a plan for that. You have to have other people you can evidence who have done it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's
Dave,
the
Mike,
mentors, get some
yeah,
mentors in play. Yeah.
something
Yeah.
structured. People want that. I think
Yeah.
those good things go a long way. And that people don't care. I find when I speak to a lot of sales, some people, I was speaking to a guy who's in sales in golf not too long ago, and he ain't ever leaving golf, right? He's a
Yeah.
golf. He's not leaving. But most people, they don't really care what they're selling. They care about how it's improving their life, right? They care about those things. Like you say, it would become sexy if you're getting the development you want and the progression. If you can sell toilet paper and it will become sexy if you're getting those things, right? People don't. Just as an industry, we're not very good. I don't think any industry is good at this either. We're not very good at articulating those things at all when we're trying to
Yeah.
get people into it,
Yeah.
that's why we're here ultimately. I was going to ask
Yeah.
you as well on, obviously I've seen it firsthand through my whole life, and many people, including my friends, tell me how a great leader you are. I've had so many people in the market turn around and go, "Well, Mike was this, Mike was that, such a great leader for us." When it comes to leadership generally, just broad brushes, what are some of the the key pillars or elements you look at and go, this is what makes a good leader?
How much did I pay you to say that, David? Did I pay you much to say
Aims me
that?
to say that one was for free. That
You
one
know,
is
I
just
like this. I'd like to have this on record. This has never been said to me ever in all my time, so I'm surprised. um, I would say that always surround you with good people. Don't be afraid that those people are in good subjects better than you, because that's always a good thing. Try and build where you can a good team environment. Make sure that they're involved in the strategy of the business. If there's a problem person, you deal with it quickly and get them out quick, because, and I've had quite a few of them, that they thought they were bigger than the team or bigger than the company. The people look to you to make that tough decision. And I'm not afraid. Yeah, I'm a fair guy, but if you disrupt the strategy for the rest of the people and the company, then I will deal with it, because I don't want a bad apple. So
Mm,
don't be afraid, because that bad apple will never go away. If that
mm,
gut feeling is there, this person's not right, get them out,
mm,
because they're like a disease.
mm, mm,
Um, I think the strategy of being shared with people in a kind of collaborated way, they take ownership of that strategy. Yes, you are the leader and you are with the one with the vision, but it's also important that you support them and back them at every step you can as you go through the strategy. And there's going to be some tough hurdles ahead. I would say making sure you're customer focused as well. I would say that it's always good to interact with your customer and listen to what they have to say. I would say don't be afraid to take, I would say, a good measured risk. If you thought that I don't like taking too many risks, but if it's a measured risk, and what I mean by that is I can see in a very period of time that this could be resolved and I'm willing to take it. But the pain of getting it wrong is minimal.
mm, mm,
The other thing is, as a leader, you need to like good, positive people and back them all the way, because you want them to go through the door for you.
mm,
Yeah. And over the years, I was mentored well by two or three people. They're still, that's the thing about mentoring, those mentoring people that help you become lifelong friends. You know, I've got one in Norway, David, I've got one in America right now. It had a massive influence on me, you know, and I'd like to think that over the years, I've been able to mentor a number of people as well.
mhm,
And I get a lot of enjoyment of seeing people being developed. You know, you see this potential and you like to see it being unlocked. Got to be close to your numbers. Make sure you have your strategic plan also with you at all times. It's there by your side every day of the week, because that strategic plan is going to continue to evolve. So you already know what your budget is going to be for the next year. You already know, what your major initiatives are, and just make sure you look after good people, look after them, and because good people will be hunted down by your competition or other people. So you got to look after them,
mm, mm,
and make sure you've got young people coming through the ranks, whether that is in engineering. I remember when I went to one of my businesses, I think you know which one it is, David. The most important people sometimes in manufacturing is your engineers. But all the engineers were getting 58, 60, 65, and we didn't have any progression of bringing any apprentices in. And that's the first thing I did. And the Royal Navy was the biggest employer, and a lot of people were partly trained. And we just said anybody who's thinking about leaving the Navy, we'd like to have a look, and they've got engineering background, we'd like to get them on board. And we got 4. I
mm,
think 2 of them are still in that business today.
mm,
Why? Because when it comes to manufacturing, engineering is an absolute key thing. So and make sure make sure they feel important. What is the trigger that makes your business better than others?
mm,
But every business is different, David. I've been into struggling businesses, and ones are in fast mode, and this is where you develop your skills, because each one has different challenges and you have a different process. Some people, when they run a business, have one process only, and they say the only way I'm going to do it, but it doesn't work in every business.
mm,
You have to assess what this business actually does need today next year after that, year after that.
Mm.
And that means you have to do things differently, then you have to do things differently for the
That's the
success.
Ruben Amorim style of leadership. Just do the same thing over and over, right?
Yeah, yeah, I've seen it. This is the way I've always done it, but in some businesses it doesn't work. You have to be able to be adaptable and really assess where the business needs are.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, going into a struggling business to a business that's growing 20% a year is two different strategies.
Mm,
Totally
mm,
two different things.
mm, mm,
It
mm,
has different demands on you, and you've got to assess them clearly, of which is best for that business.
mm.
You know,
Um,
but again, the team around you,
yeah.
surround you by good people. I can't say that enough. And I've got and a lot of the people that I've worked with over the years become still being a leader, but they were part of a team and they still became personal friends. I mean, you can't ask for any more than that. And to me, that means we had a great fun along the way, and we achieved a lot of things. Yeah, that to me is very important to see these people develop, and they've moved on to bigger things, and they become MDs as well, and chief executives themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess one more question for you, Dad. Um, we've talked about a lot of things today that are hitting the market, that are affecting it: Iran, EPR, NIC, etc., etc. What's something that people in this market aren't talking about, which is affecting it heavily as well, in your opinion?
Value. I think people just take it for granted the value, but I think that when they haven't got it, they realise the value.
Mm,
I think I know a couple of businesses are going for tender today. I know that the people they might go to will not give them the same value. So
mhm,
value, trying to generate value in the mind of a customer is going to be even more a stronger message and evidence you need to put in play today more than ever,
mm,
because everyone's driven so much on cost. But don't forget the value. What do we do that's different than anyone else does? You know,
mm,
and you'd only would miss us. You only miss this value when we're no longer here. So
mm,
before it happens, make sure everyone knows about value, because
mm,
you know everything else around you is very difficult to control. But to be able to generate value into the eyes of your customer and the people that work for you, to me, is going to be a key component over the next kind of 5 years and probably forever.
That's so funny, isn't it? Because that thing is kind of the base of everything else, right? If you don't have value, then everything else kind of,
Yeah.
falls apart. But it's the thing,
What's
I
your
guess, that
USP? USP,
yeah,
intellectual property. What are they?
yeah,
As long as you're confident about what you have, but you've got to communicate that to your customer. And every time you do something for a customer, log it down. This is what we've done for you. No one else would have done that for you. You've got to keep on reminding them that this is the value, because it's a real jungle out there, and you've got to make sure that you're better than anyone else, and make sure your customer know that you are, without being arrogant and without being overconfident. But you always got to try and find and make you have value for your customers and for the people around you.
mm, we've all heard that story, haven't we?
We
We've
have. And it's the same old message. It will carry on for years, David, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. The
Yeah.
funny thing about that message is that we all know that's the case, yet everyone still focuses on that one number. Isn't that a funny thing? We all have a first-hand experience, personally and professionally, but we still only look at that number.
You
It's
do. I've walked away a couple of times, David, where they ignored it completely. And you can guess what happened within about 3 or 4 months, can't you?
mm,
Please, can you come back?
mm, yeah, we see that
Because
all
you're
the time.
confident of where they're going and you're not going to succeed. It's a risk. But I'm back to that measured risk. I think within 6 months they'll be back, because
Mm,
we're adding so much value that no one else will be able to match that.
yeah,
You have
yeah.
confidence in your own values and your own business.
Mm,
And yeah, the odd one doesn't come back, but you can't keep on being pushed down, and you'll continue adding value all the time, and they're just ignoring the value. You want partners, customers, and people that value that relationship and those key strengths of you as a company.
yeah. No, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Well, Dad,
This is quite
Thank
a
you.
unique experience, David. Do I
Yeah,
get a fee? Do I get a fee for this? Do I? At all?
you get fee in the form of love. Does that
Well, I
that
hope you
work?
covered everything. You covered everything you wanted to cover. Do you cover anything?
I'll be
So,
yeah, no, it's great, Dad, to get you to talk about these things at length. And yeah, just I really do. Obviously, I'm biased, but I really do believe there's not many more people around who would be able to, look at things in such a top level way and understand them as you do. It's really fascinating to listen to it. So I thank you for coming on. And
it's a
who knows,
pleasure.
maybe in the future when I can afford it, I can bring you on
Well, it
once again.
depends how many hits you get. If you don't get enough hits, you would never want to invite me back again. But if you get hits over what sort of number we got, David?
What?
I'll get invited again.
Oh, if we can get 200.
Well, if you get 200, anyone who's listening to this now, please pass on the message. If you don't vote for me, then I know it's absolutely not very good. If you vote for me, then we'll be back if we hit 200 likes. There we are.
Yeah, I might have to close the podcast before it started on the first episode. If we don't get any, I have to rebrand. But
Well done, son. And
thanks, Dad.
I'll be in touch. All right.
Yeah, thank you
Okay.
everybody for listening.
Cheers, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.